semi-trucks. Texas officials say a note found at the residence of the suspected Dallas ICE gunman said he wanted to cause terror for agents. Other notes found at the suspect's Oklahoma residence indicated that he acted alone. The FBI admits that it had 275 plainclothed agents embedded in the massive January 6th crowds. It looks like the conspiracy theorists were correct. Merrick Garland dodged questions for years about informants being involved in J6. Remember Thomas Massey with Garland?
Now, in that video, that was your answer to a question to me 2 years ago, when I said how many agents or assets of the government were present on January 5th and January 6th and agitating in the crowd to go into the Capitol, and how many went into the Capitol. Can you answer that now?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh, last time, you don't know how many there were, or there were none?
I don't know the answer to either of those questions. If there were any, I don't know how many. I don't know whether there are any.
I think you may have just perjured yourself that you don't know that there were any. You want to say that again, that you don't know that there were any?
I have no personal knowledge of this matter. I think...
Sure you don't. 47 is ordering federal prosecutors to pursue the death penalty in D.C. He has signed an executive order that directs AG Pam Bondi and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro to seek capital punishment in especially aggravated cases. Frontier Airlines says that passengers on a flight from Nashville to Denver had to get off the plane following a bomb threat earlier this week. Flight attendants contacted police to get an intoxicated woman removed from the plane before it departed Nashville on Tuesday. The woman refused to leave the plane, telling staff members that she had a bomb. She's facing multiple charges. Alabama has executed death row inmate Jeffrey Todd West, convicted of killing a gas station clerk during a 1997 robbery. And conservative pastor Vodi Bachman Jr. passes away at the age of 56. Big fan of his.
Yeah, that's
Thursday night football last night, Seahawks and Cardinals.
From 52, the kick wobbles, but makes it through. And the Seahawks win it at the gun.
23-20, another field goal in the end. 46 in Arvada, 47 in Lone Tree, 49 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Gorgeous September weather here for the next few days for Denver in the Front Range. Temperatures will be very comfortable, mid to upper 70s today, low 80s Friday, upper 70s Saturday. Will be a touch cooler in the low to mid 70s Sunday. Today through Saturday, sunny and dry, maybe an isolated shower late Sunday, otherwise pleasant. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For a quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Grand jury coming back with 2 indictments for Jimmy Comey, the former FBI director, has been indicted on 2 counts, allegedly giving false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch and obstruction of congressional proceedings. Comey will reportedly turn himself in on Friday, and his arraignment is set for 10 a.m. on October 9th in Alexandria. And went back and asked ChatGPT and others, who else has been indicted under some of this stuff in the past? And it's very similar to Mike Flynn and what Mike Flynn was indicted for, which was lying to the FBI. Now, that case ended up being dismissed, and even Comey kind of admitted that that was a bit of an entrapment. Flynn didn't have any lawyers. He didn't even know he was being questioned in an official capacity. He thought the FBI was just swinging by his new office to talk, and didn't disclose everything related to a conversation he had with someone in Russia. And then they went out there and leveled charges against him because of it. So look, I look at the charges and I go, okay, one of it's for lying to Congress. Okay, before lunch today, half of Congress will lie. And depending on which side of the aisle you're on, yes, it's the other half of Congress that will lie. So the idea that we're going to prosecute somebody for lying to Congress, I'm like, come on. All right. The entire city lies before breakfast. So we're going to start prosecuting people in Washington, D.C. for lying? So that's one aspect of it. Secondly,
here's what we should do, honestly. What you need to do in order to do that is make them all take an oath before they step onto the floor.
Right. See,
that
there
would
you
be
go.
The issue. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
that's how
exactly.
You do it. Okay, continue.
So, and then the other charge is related to leaking information. Now, it's Washington, D.C. Leaking information, that happens on a daily basis in Washington, D.C. So, on one hand, you can look at the charges and go, Comey is getting brought up on charges for what half the city's going to do before breakfast. On the other hand, and why I think this is really important, is I believe the Department of Justice, the FBI, was weaponized by Democrats against Republicans. You can remember all the headshots of everybody, including friends of mine, like Jenna Ellis, brought before and brought up on charges that, you know, the other side has often engaged in. Denying the legitimacy of an election? Are you kidding me? Whoever loses denies the legitimacy of an election, yet somehow this side's denial was so egregious that we're going to bring them up on charges. So I believe the Department of Justice was weaponized. I believe this is necessary retribution in order to stop this moving forward. I believe that the Democrats are happy to weaponize government institutions against their political opponents in an effort to win. I don't believe that they are constitutionally principled people. I don't think they care about the limits of government. I believe that they are happy to take whatever power they can get, dive through your personal life, ruin you in an effort to keep you from ever getting any form of political power. If you remember, there was a whole effort to go after anybody who was ever a lawyer anywhere in the administration and seek to disbar them. And they launched efforts in states all across the country to disbar anybody associated with the Trump administration. So, you know, was Comey's lies so egregious that he has to be brought up on charges? Was leaking to the press so egregious he has to be brought up on charges? Yeah, in part, but also that's par for the course in Washington, D.C. So I have that caveat. I think this is necessary to get restraint back into government. That under Democrat leadership, they will weaponize, go after, and tear your life apart in order to politically attack you. And to stop that from happening, they need a taste of their own medicine. Mr. Thorpe, your thoughts?
Yeah, see, the thing for me when we talk about stolen election, what happened post-2020 doesn't track with anything else that had been done, said, or posited before. And not just by a little, by enormous degrees. So I don't think they're necessarily analogous, because previous administrations and individuals that have said there was something funny with an election didn't put together a plan that involved fake electors, didn't start an advertising campaign, didn't put together a group of senators and House members that were supposed to gum up the works in order to create questions about whether or not an election should be certified. None of those steps were taken beforehand. So I think that saying every party does it, I think there are different levels there. And the reason I bring that up is because you talk about the Democrats going after every lawyer ever worked for Trump. I don't believe that's true. It's the lawyers that were involved in the election conspiracy that so far no one's been able to prove is actually legitimate. And even those lawyers, when brought in, can't defend their work. They haven't been able to show that, yes, we were able to prove this. And many of those cases these lawyers were involved with that did get disbarred or censured were found to be absolute crap when they showed up in court, that they made all sorts of allegations in their filings. And then when the judge said, okay, now show me, they didn't have anything. And so those things were tossed. And yes, there should be actions taken against any lawyer of any party that files those type of lawsuits. And that would be civil or criminal. Yes, absolutely. So the thing that I'm looking at is I'm worried about this self-fulfilling prophecy that I continue to hear from the GOP. It's a fait accompli, according to them, that Biden obviously weaponized the Department of Justice. And again, if we compare and contrast behavior, I don't see any statements where Joe Biden is telling individuals and even the Department of Justice to go after persons or political enemies. And I don't see any public statements of Joe Biden declaring people guilty before any court case or anything has happened. And I want to remind, yes, James Comey has been indicted by a grand jury. And before we start doing the silly touchdown dance, I want to remind everybody, what were your impressions, audience of the Jeff and Bill show, when the grand jury handed down indictments to Donald Trump over the classified documents case? What was your impression in some of the other grand jury indictments that had happened? Did you think that was just crap? I mean, was that just made up? Was it so if you felt that those were completely and totally untoward then, why now is this different? Right? That's what I'm worried about, is that I think that Republicans at this point are working backwards. They have come to a conclusion that, yes, the Department of Justice and Biden administration weaponized government against Republicans, and now we are going to go and do the same. I think you have to go and prove the first part. And if you have information on that, go ahead and do it. You're now in the Justice. No, here's the idea, Jeff. You're in the Justice Department. If there were FBI agents that were there during January 6th, show it. If there were things behind the government that had communications in order to show that we are going to do this to prevent Donald Trump from winning the 2020 election, go ahead and do it. You have the control, you have the ability, you have the records. So go ahead and present it. And what I'm saying is with James Comey, we have a single charge. And Donald Trump, just in the last 24 hours, said he's one of the most, I think it's corrupt Americans ever. And we got one charge, a line to Congress, and one charge of obstruction. For the most corrupt, one of the most corrupt Americans? That's it? That's the grand thing here? Come on. Come on.
Bill, come on. I'm going to give you the come on.
Yeah,
everybody associated with Donald Trump in the first term had their lives ripped apart, every stone overturned. A lot of those charges around Donald Trump's team had nothing to do with what they were investigating with in the first place. Michael Flynn's charges were totally exaggerated. Roger Stone, Steve Bannon, everybody associated with him had their lives ripped apart.
Steve Bannon refused a congressional subpoena, and that's why he went. And
he went to jail for 4 months over that.
Again,
okay?
Any Department of Justice can charge anybody else for refusing to testify under a subpoena. Anyone can do that. That's okay.
And
so
then
they can charge him.
And then they go through Donald Trump's ledger and bring him up on charges for failure to properly ledger checks. They go through his past loans to figure out if he exaggerated any of his properties when nobody was injured. Nobody was ever suing Donald Trump over those injuries. You want evidence? The entire last 10 years have been an effort by Democrats to weaponize the Department of Justice as well as their own offices in New York. Letitia James ran on the idea that she was going to prosecute Donald Trump before she even knew what she was going to prosecute him on. Okay? And you can't reason with people like this. You can't go, guys, is this the type of government you want to live in? Is this the proper use of the Department of Justice? That reasoning left a long time ago. These are people that are happy to ruin your entire life to win an election. The only way to stop them is to make them feel the same pain they're willing to inflict on their political opponents. There's no other way to stop it.
So I want to go back to the thing at the beginning about the loans. There was no injury, so there's no crime there? Is that what you're saying? Because what
I'm pointing out is that they were happy to rip through Donald Trump's life in order to win an election. I mean, this stuff was from years ago, decades ago.
I disagree the idea in order to win an election because these things happened.
Bill.
No, these things happen, again, if
because
they
care
wanted
so much about how many other people like Donald Trump had been prosecuted under that same issue.
Again, I don't think that's necessarily relevant at this point in the conversation because if they wanted to go after him as far as the election, there are other things they could have done. You'd have to explain to me why Merrick Garland seemed to slow walk some of the charges and looking into it. So the timeline doesn't necessarily say that they were trying to prevent Donald Trump from running again. And what I'm hearing when you're saying that there's no injury or anything with those loan applications, so that means we're allowed to lie on our loan applications? Is that the idea? Because there would be no, as long as you paid it back,
you're
then there would be
telling
no
me
injury.
Letitia James and the prosecutors in New York care so much about this, they're going to put their efforts towards this. And how many other people have been prosecuted for that?
Let's go.
How
let's
many
go
other
slowly.
people have been prosecuted? They don't care about it at all,
let's
Bill.
go. Wait.
This was politically targeted.
Wait, let's go slowly, okay? Whether or not it's politically targeted, was the behavior okay? Are you okay with the behavior?
Of course
not. Is that
not.
okay? Okay.
No.
So even if it was politically targeted, it still was illegal. So the idea, I understand, and it could have been, I am open to the idea, and I do think that Letitia James did put a target on Donald Trump and work on that as far as to get elected. That, however, does not mean it is the Biden administration or Biden's Department of Justice doing that. That is a separate individual and a separate department.
Bill,
that is
I
separate.
am thrilled to hear that you are supporting Donald Trump in the indictment of James Comey.
How?
Is it okay to lie to Congress?
No. It's not okay to lie to Congress. So what I want to see is this.
There we go.
Here's what I want to do.
Indictments.
Yeah, I'm
Here
okay.
we go.
Here's the idea. Let's see if they can prove it. That's what I'm curious about. Because, and I'm looking at this indictment as a side eye. I'm not saying that it's untoward. If he lied to Congress, go right ahead. I have no problem with that. I'm not certain they can prove this case. I think they've overstretched themselves at this point. And part of that reason that I'm coming to that conclusion is the previous prosecutor in that office who had the bones to do the job said they couldn't prove the case. And now we have an insurance lawyer that is a defense lawyer, not a prosecutor, deciding to bring the case. I am skeptical that she's able to connect the dots. I'm not saying she can't. I'm skeptical based on who they have and also based on the legal team I've seen Comey put together. I'm skeptical they're going to be able to beat his defense. I'm not saying you shouldn't charge him. I'm just saying I'm skeptical on this count. I don't think that she's got all her ducks in a row. I think this thing could fall apart. And Donald Trump's doing more harm to it than good.
She couldn't even get an indictment. She got 2. So, I don't know. You know, prior to this new attorney taking over, everybody was out there saying, "Oh, the previous attorney has walked away because they don't think they can get an indictment." She delivered 2 out of the 3 indictments.
That's not the reason. The attorney did not walk away because they didn't think they could get indictments. The attorney walked away because they didn't think they could get a conviction. They said they could probably get an indictment, but not a conviction. And if you talk to DAs, especially like friend of the show, George Brockler, he would tell you that it is a bad practice for an office to bring charges they don't think they can win in court. That when you bring an indictment, when you try to get that through the grand jury, that's something you feel you have a solid chance of winning in court, better than 50-50. You've got like a 75-80% chance. That's the important part. It's not that the lawyer in Virginia said they couldn't get the indictment. It's that they didn't think they could get a conviction. And that's important when the person that has the stripes doesn't think that everything lines up at this point in order to get a conviction. And the other thing that's going to hurt is Donald Trump's public statements. Those are going to hurt on a level I don't think everybody is really understanding at this point. Because prior to an indictment, when the president says, go get this person and they're guilty as hell, prior to a court case, that's going to be a huge issue in trying to get a conviction here. An enormous issue. Because the president has declared you publicly guilty before you've even been allowed to mount a defense in court. That's going to be a huge issue that everybody's ignoring here.
I don't know if you can say that they weren't sure that they could convict and not get an indictment. Here's the Republic saying that the case was so flimsy, ABC News is reporting, that prosecutors this week cited insufficient evidence and advised Halligan, the new attorney, in a memo to decline moving forward with perjury or obstruction charges against him. That was before she brought it to the grand jury. So I'm not sure you can make the claim, oh, they knew they could get an indictment, but they couldn't get a prosecution.
The reporting that I saw,
they told her not to bring it even to the grand jury.
The reporting that I saw was the conclusion that they couldn't necessarily make it stick. That's the reporting that I saw, that it was that the charges that were there were so flimsy, they doubted their ability to get a conviction. Because you do not judge a district attorney based on the amount of grand jury indictments they get. You judge a district attorney based on convictions. That's how we judge Phil Weiser here.
Sure, but
and that's fair, and that's the issue.
But the attorney, the previous attorney, withdrew even before it went to grand jury.
Yeah, because they said they couldn't prove the case. That's the reporting that I'm seeing is they felt they couldn't prove the case.
No,
which is what I'm saying.
I'm not sure that that's crystal clear because
that's
because she withdrew before.
It could be. I know, but that's why they pulled out. As from what I'm reading. Again, from what I'm reading.
Join the conversation. What do you think of this? Is this tit for tat lawfare? And you're sad to see our country descend into it. Is this necessary in order to right the ship when progressives are willing to rip your life to shreds in order to win political campaigns? Because they don't care at all about the founding principles of this country. This is a necessary way to stop them. Is Jim Comey guilty of these? He's leaked information before. That's well established by him, as he leaked it to a former friend or a friend of his that's a professor that then leaked it to the New York Times. That's all been established. Do you think Jim Comey is guilty, deserves this prosecution, or is this just Donald Trump weaponizing the DOJ against his opponents? Want to hear from you. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the indictment of James Comey for lying to Congress and leaking information he shouldn't have been leaking in an effort to sabotage Donald Trump around the Russiagate, Russia collusion nonsense that took place. Look, just about anybody associated with Donald Trump because of the Democrats was brought forth and ended up with mugshots because they were so intent on using lawfare to sabotage a political opponent that this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. I mean, if you're going to prosecute Donald Trump on the check issue when Hillary Clinton gets out with a fine for the similar violation, if you're going to rip through Donald Trump's loan history and prosecute him when nobody was injured, and you don't prosecute other people for doing similar stuff, you're nitpicking in an effort to label your political opponent, for instance, a convicted felon. Look, he's a convicted felon. We can't elect a convicted felon. Letitia James and the DOJ and everybody around this doesn't care about actually prosecuting these crimes because nobody else that does this has been prosecuted like Donald Trump has. So you can't come to the Democrats and just go, hey, guys, knock it off. Let's get better about this. Limited government. Let's respect the boundaries of our political opponents. They are willing to rip you to shreds publicly in order to win an election. And the reason why you've got to do the same thing back to them is it's the only way to stop it. At this point, it's the only way to stop it. So did Jim Comey involve himself with terrible crimes? Well, lying to Congress happens before breakfast. Leaking information happens before breakfast in Washington, D.C. They do it all the time, but these guys have got to be held accountable, or the minute they get back into power, they'll just go right back at it. I don't know any other way to stop them. Let's go to the phone lines. Tony Littleton. Good morning, Tony. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. Isn't this case that he's filing that against Comey, isn't it about statements around Russia in the 2016 election? Isn't that what this is mostly about, or am I wrong?
Yeah, Russia. Yeah, the Russian collusion, Russia investigations, and whether or not he leaked information. And it's pretty clear that either he or McCabe did leak information. McCabe saying that order did come from Comey, and then he went and testified before Congress around the Durham investigations as to whether or not he did leak that information, and he said no to Congress. So he lied before Congress.
Well, I guess the thing I think is going to potentially backfire is this is simply going to bring back up all Russia's involvement in the 2016 election. And if Trump's attorneys try to go in there and make the case, that was wrong, he shouldn't have been, he shouldn't have said that. I mean, that's been proven that Russia tried to assist Trump in 2016. And the judge is going to know that. That's a fact. I mean, that's just a fact. That happened. And so I think Comey's probably in pretty good standing on that issue.
But that's not the issue. The issue is whether or not he leaked information to the press and then lied before Congress about it.
All right. So I'm not. I didn't know all the detail of what it was really filed about. It was really fast. I hadn't had a chance to read the document. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that this is what Trump's going to want all this coming back up. I'm just not. I don't think, from what I've heard from experts, they don't think he's going to be convicted, and this is simply going to bring back up that issue. And Trump hates that issue. He took Putin's word over our intelligence service, and so all that stuff's going to come back out, and it's going to be brought back up in front of the American public. And I don't think
But
that's.
Tony,
I don't think that's going to serve him.
We've now gone through 3 elections with that. 16, 20, 24. It was never proved that there was a criminal conspiracy.
No, that's right.
I don't think that there's much there anymore.
Well, there's.
But Trump wants
remember
retribution. I think he deserves it.
Well, remember that collude, and yes, they absolutely colluded, or not collude. Excuse me. They supported Trump's efforts to win. They tried to assist him in winning. Could they prove that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia? No, they couldn't. And as it was stated in the report, there were 3 witnesses who were critical that would not testify. And I mean, and this is what was said in the document. There are 3 witnesses, and those are the 3 that Trump then pardoned because they wouldn't communicate. And so we're never really going to know. I mean, we're never going to know did they work together. But there is a distinction. I think there's an important distinction between what happened during Biden's presidency and what's happening in Trump's. And that is, in Biden's case, there's absolutely no evidence that Biden ever worked with Merrick Garland and said, go after him. He never did that. There's no proof of that. And Trump is driving all of these cases. He's telling the Justice Department, go charge him, go after him. That's
you
different.
think all the investigations of Donald Trump to the point of digging through his wife's underwear drawer was simply a justified investigation by the FBI? You don't think they were politically motivated?
Yeah, my personal opinion was I wish they'd never brought the cases in New York, but the 2 cases that were being handled by can't remember his name. One was the secret documents that he would not give back. That brings us to the underwear drawer. That was a solid case, but he had a judge that just kept delaying and putting that off. I mean, I personally believe he would have been convicted on both of those cases that were being brought by the special prosecutor, but the cases never got to come to trial. So that's my opinion. Yes, if Trump had just simply given back, I still don't know why he wouldn't. Why would he not give back the documents? It never made any sense to me. It just didn't make any sense.
He declassified
He could have avoided the whole thing.
Because he declassified him.
Jeff,
I think that
no, he said he did.
No, we have no proof of that.
You don't always.
No,
I'm
he
sorry.
He said he declassified him.
No, there's a process and procedure. None of the documents changed as far as
No, he
markings
didn't
or classification.
declassify.
There's no legal requirement to follow a particular procedure. He said he declassified it.
Yes, there is. Otherwise, they're not declassified. No,
it's not.
They're not declassified unless he follows the procedure. There has to be a procedure in order for them to become declassified. He can declare it, but then there has to be a procedure and a process.
He said he declared it.
Yeah, but we have no proof of him declaring it.
Except
on those documents.
Said he did.
No, but we have nothing that follows up on that. Nothing at all. And so
go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, Jeff. One of the things that I think stands out is you remember during Biden's administration, they went after him thinking he got $50 million from somewhere somehow, and they chased and found absolutely nothing. I mean, nothing, absolutely nothing. And now,
Tony, you can't say you found absolutely nothing.
How
well is Hunter Biden doing right now?
You know what? They never found anything on Joe
was collecting
Biden.
checks from Ukraine.
Jeff,
Biden,
Jeff,
in between his visits with prostitutes, was collecting checks from Ukraine.
I understand his son. That's one thing, but Joe Biden never was. They never found anything that they could take him to court, or they would have taken him to court. Now, but now you have a case where. We know it's fact that the UAE is now receiving AI chips from the United States, and in return, they invested $2 billion in Trump's crypto business in to get those chips. Now that is so blatantly obvious. Why do you not? Why are you not concerned about that?
I'm guessing you'll be bringing the indictments, and the indictments will continue. All right, Tony, we got to get to a break here. Lots of text messages on the indictment of Jim Comey.
Yeah. And just on a point when we're talking about the documentations and the declassification, Department of Justice in no court filings ever argued that Donald Trump had declassified them. That's important because what Donald Trump says in public versus what DOJ and versus what Trump argues in court is totally different. Because, again, it's brass tacks and you can't lie when you come into court. You can say whatever you want outside of the court, but they never argued, never showed that anything was declassified beforehand. His lawyers never argued that they had any proof of it. So it just wasn't. That's the problem. We don't have any process or procedure. That's it.
Text messages 5556 coming in. I always thought law enforcement was held to a higher standard. So shouldn't Comey be held to a higher standard? Yes, yes, yes. Comey is a political hack. It's super clear. Even in his own statements, 8647, that the former director of the FBI was highly politically motivated against Donald Trump, willing to leak information in order to harm Donald Trump. He weaponized the FBI to go after Donald Trump, and now he's going to be held accountable. This is perfectly acceptable. This indictment is righteous in my mind. What do you think? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law Text line, 720-819-5115. We'll be taking your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Text messages on both sides of this saying Comey was a... Oh boy, I'm having a hard time reading these. Basically, I'm tired of turning the other cheek. This is right for Trump to pursue this. Others saying this will be done in 45 days with no conviction. What do you think? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Capitalist Law text line at 720-819-5115. In the meantime, now's time for the Friday edition of You Choose the News.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we make questionable decisions. It is the loser edition of You Choose the News. Hang on, kids.
You are one pathetic loser.
Loser! Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club.
Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser.
Loser.
Yes, it's those stories that both Jeff and Blake felt weren't worthy of our attention. We give them a second shot at glory on Friday. It is the loser edition of You Choose the News. Yes, all right. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you know how this works. Silly stories I find on the interwebs give them even more ridiculous headlines to play this fake radio news game show. And we do it at this hour of the morning because those in charge are not awake yet. So we are left unsupervised and are going to take full advantage of this brief moment of levity. Okay, here are the stories today. Blake's in the news department. Jeff's in the studio. Your headlines that are returning, sir, are, well, excuse me. Headline number 2, enjoying a cuppa. Headline number 3, Wilson Phillips inspired. And headline number 4, showing what you're made of. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Well, let's enjoy a cuppa.
Yeah, let's enjoy a cuppa. Yeah, British tea drinkers are going crazy this week once they found out they can take their delight interstellar. Yes, there's a study to talk about how astronauts of tomorrow could possibly sustain themselves for long periods of time living and working on the moon. And if you're British, that obviously includes tea. So the University of Kent have demonstrated how it's possible to grow tea in lunar soil. Yeah, the research students there planted tree saplings in soil specifically designed to mimic what you find on the surface of the moon as well as Mars. For weeks, the saplings were exposed to carefully crafted temperatures, humidity, and lighting conditions that they would experience in space. The saplings tested in lunar soil conditions were described as having flourished, and certain tea plants taking root and growing really well along a batch of control plants that were left to grow in terrestrial conditions. Unfortunately, Martian tea, not a possibility. The Martian ones didn't do well at all. But we can grow it on the moon. So the prospect of growing plants on the moon has been marked down as a success. And if you're a fan of tea, especially Earl Grey, hey, you've got something to look forward to. Alrighty, Blake, your choice, sir. Well, excuse me, Wilson Phillips inspired or showing what you're made of?
Well, excuse me.
Well, excuse me. That's what was stated in Florence, South Carolina recently because there was a foul odor that had been making its way through the campus of the high school for weeks. They couldn't figure out what it was. They had gone to things like looking for a gas leak. They had looked at certain ventilation problems. They were thinking something is going on. There may be a chemical spill somewhere inside of the school. It was disrupting class times. People were getting headaches and sick. And turns out it was gas. Alexander Lewis, 32, is facing charges of disturbing school and malicious injury to property for using fart spray to mimic the smell of feces.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he is also a teaching assistant at the school.
I was going to say, man,
yes.
This is coming from the teacher's lounge.
Yes, exactly. Now, the school reportedly took $55,000 in damages that had to do with things like inspection of air conditioning repair costs and looking for gas leaks. And people, including staff members, reported headaches, nausea, dizziness as well, and missing classes. Yes. So, yeah, $55,000. And he's like, I'm cute. I'm just going to do the fart spray. Yeah, exactly. Guess
how much does that cost per can?
I don't know, but
I've never seen it.
Yeah, but you know what it is? It may cost only $1 a can, but it's priceless at ruining your teaching career.
Boy, you got that right.
Yeah, he's done. Okay. Jeff, your choice,
See
sir.
ya.
Yeah, see ya. Bye-bye. Jeff, Wilson Phillips inspired or showing what you're made of?
Let's do Wilson. What was
Wilson
that?
Phillips
Wilson
inspired.
Phillips.
Yes.
That's like before my time. I don't know Wilson
so
Phillips.
if all of you remember that wonderful song, Hold On, well, that was exactly recently what a 13-year-old Afghan boy was doing for hours and hours. Yes, he was holding on literally for dear life. Why? The 13-year-old Afghan boy made a dangerous journey from Kabul to Delhi by hiding in the landing gear compartment of a passenger plane.
Oh, wow.
A 13-year-old. The teen was from Kunduz, a city in northern Afghanistan. He was found wandering around on the runway at Delhi's international airport after the plane had landed.
Wow.
Security interviewed the boy and said, yes, he managed to travel undetected on the flight, which landed in Delhi about 11 o'clock in the morning this past Sunday. Police found him roaming by himself, took him aside for questioning, and he said, yeah, he was trying to hide and he wanted to get out of there, but he didn't really want to go to New Delhi. He wanted to go to Iran. He thought the place was going to Tehran. He didn't think so. Yeah.
Man,
so
plane.
he just thought of it. And what he did though is he snuck into the airport by just blending in with a group of passengers, and then somehow made his way out onto the tarmac and got into the aircraft's rear wheel well. Now experts are saying this is absolutely and totally shocking because most of the time, because of the high altitude, people pass out, and then when the landing gear opens, you go all the way down to the earth. So they were really surprised that the kids survived this entire thing.
That's amazing.
This is absolutely incredible. And too bad we missed the other one because we had a report recently of a school board meeting of the Yolo County Moms for Liberty chapter president who at the Davis Unified School District meeting decided to make a statement by taking off her clothing.
Oh, wow.
Yes, Moms for Liberty did that?
Yes, the chapter leader, Moms for Liberty, disrobed, speaking in front of the school board. And there's a video, kids, but I'm not going to tell you where to find it. That's on you. You're not
Time
gonna ruin
to
my
change.
search
That
history.
doesn't seem like the type of group of people that would normally do that.
What she look like?
All right, that's the end of your Truth and News. Back to you, sir.
All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.